Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Beyond the Brief. Today, we're very, very fortunate to have Derek Weeks here. Derek is the CMO of Catalan and also a notable author and advisor to many companies. Derek, thanks so much for being here.
Chris, awesome to be here. Love being on podcast and talking to everyone about just what's going on in marketing. There's always something new every week, every day to take advantage of.
Every second, indeed. Well, why don't you get us started by sharing a bit of your background and what you're up to lately?
Sure. Yeah. So I've been in B2B software for 30 years of my career. Been in an executive role for a little more than half of that. Most of it in B2B software has been in the IT and technology space, IT operations, DevOps, some cybersecurity and operations, software testing, open source development, that kind of thing. You know, part of my life, I grew up early life in Philadelphia, but then my family moved out to Silicon Valley. Grew up in Cupertino, kind of heart of Apple world and semiconductor companies and everything else. And I just fell in love with technology there and stuck with it. And it was always exciting because just as in marketing, I would say maybe later in my career where it's really like this continuous innovation and learning realm and new tools and data and all of that. Technology was one of these places that it was ever changing. There was always something new in technology to be chasing. And as a marketer, that was, always interesting. How do you capture people's attention around this thing and either take advantage of the opportunity and the timing to have something grow and to be a part of that? And at the same time, also, as the old boss of mine once said, gravity is inevitable. To watch the technology market trends, ebb and flow, and to hopefully be on the parts that are growing rather than shrinking or declining. But it's something that I've loved my whole career. And I've got to work internationally in my career as well. So I lived in Germany for a number of years. I've worked for a French software company. I now work with Catalan's an American company, but we have a large base in India and Vietnam that I get to work with every day. So, and I had studied international business in school, so I'm kind of in my realm of global businesses, B2B software startups, tech. Like that's my vibe, right?
Derek, I love that. Some notable brands in addition to Catalan, Sonatype, and Linux. It strikes me that each one of the brands you've been involved with is uh, is really a do good, like actually solve meaningful problems kind of solution. So have you been very careful and thoughtful about finding yourself in that place where you're not just selling a Me Too solution? I mean, has that been something that's been conscious in your pathway, or has it just been fortuitous that that's the way it unfolded?
Maybe fortuitous, but I think probably in the heart of every marketer, uh, you want to find something in some place where you believe in the mission, and you believe in the mission, you believe in the people. You can really get into it. You can understand and see and feel what kind of impact you could make in those places. And probably that, if I was in the hospitality industry my whole career or in MarTech or, farm equipment or something else, I would have found a way to, find that passion, path to be on. And I think that's, probably one of the more important career lessons of I've made it a point to be picky about where I go next and who I go to work with in those areas, because it's wherever you go, the job is going to be difficult and challenging. If it wasn't, we wouldn't dive into it. Another good friend of mine years ago said, Derek, there is going to be a problem everywhere that you go. It's just, are you solving it with the people you want to be solving it with?
Yeah.
Right. And that stuck with me a lot, but I think it's part of just, I'm passionate around technology and always learning the kind of new thing around the corner and seeing ahead, which most startups, that most startups have an angle on that, which I find exciting.
Yeah, I've worked in tech a lot myself, and the one of the kind of mantras that I've always, frankly, across all brands, thought carefully about, but particularly in tech, because I feel like it's so burdened with speeds and feeds, kind of tropes around the stuff that it does, or the whatever the data says,
Yeah.
and that mantra is honor the intelligence of your audience.
Yep.
And and I worked on HP, and we actually did a whole global campaign for the personal systems group, going to the CTOs that were buying, hundreds of thousands of systems for their enterprise. And we literally did a haiku campaign, which I remember presenting it, and the client's like, "Oh my God, like what on earth are you
What?
talking
Yeah.
about?" And yet we back in the day, we did a lot of ad testing and tested off the charts. I mean, not that I believe that's always the answer, but it intuitively, we knew if you honor people's intelligence and don't just like pretend that they are smart, or if you really authentically relate to them, it breaks through. And it strikes me you have a similar view, and I know one of the things you talk a lot about is community.
Yeah.
And you can't have community unless you honor people's intelligence, so those kind of fit nicely together, don't they?
Yeah, there's a deep, you know, deep value that I have in empathy for an audience, and the cornerstone of marketing, of being helpful. And sometimes people get into this discussion of like, you're a marketer, we're at a company, we have a product, your job is to promote that product, right? Of course, right? We need to talk about the product that we're selling. We're not going to be able to sell it if we don't do that. But the product has to be helpful in some way. And you have to be empathetic enough to the audience to say, don't talk about your product so much so that you force your customer to think about, why would that be useful? Right? I can describe a pencil all day long and why it's such a good pencil, and the lead is great and the eraser rubs the right way and whatever. But if you don't connect to the writer who's going to use it and the purpose that they're going to use that for, and you're not helpful in that way, it, to me, I really see it as friction between you and the audience, of you're forcing them to do the translation for you. And in my career, early on, I grew up as a product marketer, and the product marketers play a key role in marketing. And that's the engineers built something, and the market wants something, or the salespeople want to sell something, and you're the translator between those. And the between the engineers and the customers, it's the same way. And if you just describe, well, the engineers can't describe it, but let me describe it in layman's terms, and I'll tell you what the product is, you only get so close to the customer. And when you can get to that point where you're in the mind of the customer, like, why would I find this to be helpful? Anything that I buy at Catalan as the CMO or my team invest in, we're thinking this is going to help us achieve our goal, right? Not like, because how many widgets and things can it do? And yes, those are important at some point, but at the end of the day, we just want it to help us do our jobs better, right?
Yeah.
You have to get out to that connection point, and it's so easy for people to say, I'm a marketer of a company that sells a product, or like, I'm a product marketer, so I market the product. And it's like, actually, you're marketing the helpfulness of the product, not the product. Like, you're
Right.
taking it the role too literally.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. The obsession with what the technology can do rather than what you can do with the technology is a common breakpoint, and exhausting. And also, I think repetitive nature of so many campaigns and programs is, they say the same 18 things for
Yes.
20 years.
Yeah.
And, as humans, we become like unaffected by that. We just literally block it out. And that's not to say there aren't mnemonics and elements in campaigns that have a great resonance, but if you don't bring it to that relatable point, and frankly, help them think about it rather than telling them what to think about, what the answer is, right?
Yeah.
I like to make fun of the old campaign that I think everybody's familiar with of Ford, quality is job one. Well, good Lord, if that's really the first thing you're trying to tackle, you gotta like that's tough. Like that, you're not known for that. Like, yeah, you're not. There's a disconnect here. Can we realign on something here?
Was
But
that an internal slogan or an external slogan? At some point, actually, in their history, that mattered at
yeah,
Ford because they were up against very competitive Japanese markets where quality was
existed.
was job one.
Yeah, yeah,
They didn't brag about it so much, but they delivered on it. And
yeah,
I spent a lot of time looking at W. Edwards Deming and how he helped the Japanese bring quality into their supply chains and all that. But that's another podcast and another story. But
right.
I think it really comes down to marketers are the architects of trust in a market, in a company, in an organization, in a community. And I think it's how you build that trust. And at some point, like if you're a giant brand, a Google or an IBM or a Ford, right, then the architect of trust is just say the same thing over and over again because you've already built the trust. You didn't
Right.
get to be $100 billion organization by not being a trustful brand. When you
Right.
work at a startup, you're trying to grow trust from no one knows me. No one
Yeah.
knows Derek Weeks. No one knows Catalan. Like,
Right.
how do I go out there and build a brand, assuming we have a strong product? How do I build awareness of that product, build awareness of the brand, reach out into the community that we're trying to serve, and architect that trust with people? And the funny thing is, you mentioned community before. If you think of yourself as an architect of trust, am I going to be is it going to be easier for me to do that talking about the product and the specs and the feeds and speeds of this, or saying, Chris, you have a problem that you're facing every day, and I understand what that is, and I can help you get there. And even if I can't, like it might be me plus two or three other people or companies that say, I think we can all work together to
Yeah.
solve this problem. You're going to build trust better that way because again, the speeds and feeds thing leaves it up for you to interpret why that's actually important and relevant. Not to say that you can't, it's just more effort for you in the market to interpret that. And you would interpret it differently than Mary or Bob or Jane,
Yep.
along those same lines. So it's more risky, if you will, to let the audience figure that out.
Yeah, one of the things we push hard on is driving social proof. Where the actual customer's voice is heard around the way they feel about the things that your brand and your solutions are able to do for them, and catalyzing that, right? Making sure that they have a forum for that. I know in the context of communities and trust there that's a big component of what you do. How have you done that at Catalan?
So in a lot of different ways,
Yeah.
uh, at Catalan, this is the second place where I've worked where we had community as part of marketing. And community is a very large part of marketing. I didn't look at the numbers before we came on this morning, but our product community has 125,000 plus people in that community. And part of that, it's a product community. It's people that are using our product that are sharing their experiences in using their product. They're sharing their frustrations with using the product. They are sharing their solutions or things that they've come up with. Here's an interesting way that I did this, or something I do every day that other people may find super interesting, but is just kind of my normal every day. But it creates a forum to enable people to share with one another. And I think when, we are the thing that we do within the community is we provide a forum for people to interact and gather. We are not building a stage for our company to shout from.
Yeah.
Hey, we have this new thing. We have this new product. We just released these new features. We do that on occasion, but there's not like, we're
Yeah.
not releasing some new feature, widget, whatever, every single day. So something has to fill the void in between there, and it's a lot of people that have an experience that are trying to learn, that we're trying to help. And in this forum where we provide the forum and others gather, others end up helping each other, and that does a number of things in community. One, it does create trust within people. It creates visibility. It gives it gives some gravity to the brand that you created. Uh, it also creates a whole lot of content and knowledge sharing that is very important these days for what LLMs are looking for.
Yeah.
Where's the most trusted content and experience out there? It's like why LLMs love Reddit, because it's a real source of human truth, not pretend or made up. Like, I want you to believe this thing, so I'm a marketer and I'm going to tell you some fictitious story. So the community is more authentic, it's more honest, it's more trustworthy because of those exchanges where we're not driving it. uh, so I think that's a very important part. But I think the other thing that community does, and we also do this in our corporate brand, is there's a human connection, right? And when we talked before about speeds and feeds versus, a story of trust, the story of trust is also who's telling it, right?
Yeah.
Is it a billboard like, hey, we have a new product release, like here's our latest billboard, or, post on LinkedIn that's just a graphic? Or is it like Chris Perkins is here saying something about something that this audience cares about? That human to human connection, whether it's in a digital online forum or whether it's video exchanges or us on this podcast, are so important to people. And kind of building that trust, understanding like I'm part of this, people understand me, they can empathize with me, all of that. It's all part of it.
I love it. Tell us a little bit about how you came up with and then created the all day DevOps. Like like that's a big
Yeah.
part of your program and,
Yeah.
I mean, a part of your community outreach. And tell us about how that, like, how'd you lead down that path? And then, what are some of the learnings as you built it? Because building a place that fosters community and connection is tough because you're asking people to stop doing something that they already, like, nobody has spare time, right?
Yeah.
So you're saying take 5% of your time or whatever percent of your current approach to life and redeploy it against this. How
Yeah.
did you, and what lessons have you learned as you've improved that kind of experience for users?
Yeah, so all day DevOps, I got to go back a couple of roles to talk about all day DevOps, but it was the first community that we grew to over 100,000 people, and this was at a prior firm where I worked. But the thing about that community, and why it resonated when it did, we were in a burgeoning community at the time, that was the DevOps community. It's a technical community, and they're trying to figure out how do you just release software faster, I think is kind of the layman's way to look at it. More technical than that for all the DevOps people out there listening to this.
Yeah, right.
Take that simple explanation of it, for those not close to this space. But we were going out into this market and we were selling to it, marketing to it. But as part of that, we were participating and showing up to the events, and there were local events and regional events. There were one or two national events, but the biggest event in the space might have been 800 people. So it
Yeah.
was pretty small. These days, a DevOps event could bring in tens of thousands or 100,000 people, um, because it's now a big part of the IT tech industry. But at that time, it was relatively small. And we would go and participate in a lot of these events. And what we noticed was we and a few other friends of ours were showing up at these events, and we were the ones speaking at the events and on stages. And we would be in front of a group of people. And we would meet, say, like someone from Wells Fargo. And they're like, hey, I'm here with my buddy. We work at Wells Fargo. We're in the DevOps team. And I just ask a simple question of these people. How many other people are at Wells Fargo, Lloyd's of London, or John Deere, or wherever company you were at? How many other people are there in the DevOps group? And the answers would be like, oh, there's 100, 200, 700, whatever, a large number of people, but only two were there.
Mm.
And my friend Mark and I said that there's got to be another way to approach this. We're the lucky ones that have a company that allows us budget and allows us time to go out and be in this community and interact with these people. But there's a gap. How do the two people at this conference from Wells Fargo can't go back and educate 698 people at Wells Fargo on how to do this? So how do we provide a forum for those other people that are just as eager to learn?
Mm.
But Wells Fargo's not going to pay for 700 people to travel to some conference
Right.
in, some distant city and hotels and whatever the registration cost and all that. So we said, let's do something really simple. We're going to get all of our friends that speak at these conferences that aren't pitching stuff as vendors, but just being helpful. We're going to go online. So anyone in the world, anywhere where you are, can attend and be part of this. We're going to make it free. And the other bold move, which was really Mark's doing, was the first year we did it, we ran the event for 15 hours. So we could get a large audience within Europe and North America to participate. And starting the second year, we ended up doing this for 24 hours straight,
Wow.
nonstop, 5 tracks, speakers from all over the world that just wanted to share and be helpful. Recorded all of that. We had a Slack forum, all of that. So that idea from myself and Mark and 4 or 5 of our friends from the industry that didn't work at our company that just wanted to be helpful said, we're going to do this. When we announced we were going to do it, and we didn't even have any speakers lined up, it was just like, we have an idea. We need speakers. Like, anyone want to join? There were 300 people that wanted to register for just the idea. 3 months later, we ran the event, and over 13,000 people showed up to this thing. And we knew that we were onto something. There was a niche in the market that had not been served, of people that wanted to learn, that didn't have access to the learning and the people or the venue in their neighborhood, at their company, what have you. And that the basic formula of make it free, make it accessible, don't pitch people, because no one wanted to show up to 24 hours of vendor pitching.
Ugh.
Like, that would be like the worst nightmare for
Torture.
everyone. But that resonated. And so we found when it resonated, we doubled down on it. And the next year we had close to 40,000 people participate in that. The second year is 24 hours, and we did that for a number of years. Uh, but at its core, it was just be helpful.
Yeah.
And as part of that, there were a whole lot of lessons that came from that of, yes, we were working at a company. Yes, we were being helpful. Yes, we reached this gigantic audience, and we were a tiny company at the time that we started this out. But if you can imagine, like, as a marketer, as a modern marketer, the data that came with it. We know what companies are investing in DevOps. We know how big their teams are, because we told them, register yourself, and encourage your whole team to register. reserve your conference rooms, reserve your auditoriums. So we would see like Capital One had 450 people registered. Like, here's a company that's investing in DevOps, like
Yeah.
Lufthansa, like they have people registered. We'd even have them register their viewing parties. So we knew like these companies were gathering. We had um, Dr. Pepper, Keurig, and PepsiCo had DevOps groups, and we had a leaderboard, and we would publish the leaderboard, who has how many people registered. And Dr. Pepper and PepsiCo
Awesome.
were battling like, they have 240, we only have 220, we need to, battle this out. But we found the data, we knew the companies, we knew the people, we knew the titles of who was out there, we knew where it was growing. Like last year, Germany had 100 participants. This year, there's 3,000 participants. There's something happening in Germany. Like as a company, do we have a channel partner there? Do we have salespeople there? The amount of data that we could get
Yeah.
from being helpful in the community was not, and we weren't showing up like the next day, hey, 40,000 people, thanks for attending. Let me now spam the heck out of you
Right.
the next day, because none of those people would show up again. It's, if you can't do that, what would you learn if you knew the target audience for your thing you could have a bunch of data on,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and that's the key about data, right? Used wisely to provide value and to meet them where they are is essential. And it's one of the fatal flaws in so many programs is people use it and abuse it to stalk you. And nobody likes that. Even I mean, and you think about the amount of waste that creates and frankly the brand dislike.
Yeah.
I can name more brands that I won't buy because of their behavior of retargeting than
Yeah.
I can that I thought did a really good job. And that's a shame, isn't it?
Yeah. And so, key rules of be helpful.
Yep.
Second rule that we always did: don't talk about yourself, which was don't promote your product, as part of this community, because it was a turnoff. And we even internally, even though we had that rule, as we hired people and grew, people would come in and like, oh my gosh, you have this amazing large audience, let's sell to them. And it's like, no, actually, don't do that, right? Be helpful. So we would do things like we would, go on a road show. We're in Boston, we're in Atlanta, we're in Dallas, we're in San Francisco. And the field marketing teams would say, we need to get an audience here to learn about our company and become familiar with us. And I said there's kind of two basic formulas for this. Invite all of our company executives, have like the president, the VP of sales, the VP of engineering, the CTO, right? And then hire some thought leader to be the like keynote person or moderator. Standard formula, right?
Yep.
And you'll get 30 people in a room if you have your BDRs reaching out and your marketers and your email list and whatever, right? Or we can say, we're going to be helpful. I know a whole bunch of people in the community. I know some people that live in San Francisco or live in Dallas or live close enough that they would come up and they would just speak on the topic that they know that they're passionate about, that's in this industry, that has nothing to do with ourselves and our products. And we stacked the room with thought leaders from the industry or practitioners that were sharing their value. The room would have 100 people in it, not 30 people in it, sizably more. And here's the advantage: we organized the event, so they knew us from that. At the coffee breaks, our salespeople and our executives were talking to everyone in the room who was like, I love this. This is so helpful. You guys were so helpful. What do you do? Right. And that was the experience that it's much better to lead into, because you're like, hey, Chris, someone invited us for a steak dinner this week to learn about our, we were talking off air about like, what's your financial situation? Like, I'm going to like, this steak dinner is going to pitch me on someone's product. I don't want to go to the steak dinner where you're
Yeah.
just going to pitch me. But if you said, we're gathering a bunch of marketers to have dinner and just discuss marketing and no one's pitching,
Mhm.
like, sign me up if I'm available, right? I'm
Yep.
all for that. So the kind of lead with helpfulness helped scale a lot that people are like, "My gosh, how did you get 100 people in the room? At my last company, we only got 30." It's because at your last company, you were pitching products
Yeah.
and speeds and feeds and your executive team.
Yeah.
Here, we were being helpful, and all of a sudden, you have deeper relationships, and you know what? The next time we did a meetup in Dallas or Atlanta or Boston, we're like, "Hey, do you wanna come again?" They were like, "Sign me up. I love the
Yeah.
first one."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. The
Being human, right?
Oh, I love that. We often use the cocktail experience analogy in explaining the right forum for messaging because the number of times we as an agency get asked to do, buy one, get one or some other crap like
It
that. And I'm like, do you walk into a cocktail party and walk up to somebody and say, buy one, get one? No, you'd be like laughed at. Better is, hi, I'm Chris. Hi, Chris, what do you do? Oh, I do this. What do you do? Right. It all of a sudden now we're like having a human conversation instead of like flogging you with stuff and
I
same,
think there's
same
a
principle.
quote I took from someone else in my book. This is not
Yeah.
original Derek, but, marketing is like a first date. If all you do is talk about yourself, there will not be a second date, right? It's
Exactly.
like the cocktail party, like, come in like, "I'm Chris. I'll let me tell you why Chris is important and what
Yeah.
Chris does," and, like, all of this, like, "Chris, Chris, Chris," and then
Oh
you
my
leave
God.
and they're like, "That guy only talked about himself." Like,
Right.
wow. He was so full
Exactly.
of himself, we don't wanna go to a cocktail party with him again, right?
So you touched on it, Derek. Unfair Mindshare is your book.
Yes.
Um, how on earth did a busy CMO find time to write a doggone good book and have the Unfair Mindshare consultancy? Like,
Yeah,
do you have a digital twin or a physical twin or like? Well, how does this work?
I have difficulty with being bored and just not not being active, uh, but the honesty around the book was, uh, we had these great experiences building communities, working with people, and all of the approach that we took, it's just like this conversation, of it wasn't that difficult or like unique or innovative. It was more like, hey, be helpful, be human,
Right.
connect, be cordial. Like, don't talk about yourself all the time. They're just basic rules that we were following. But every time that we would run across other people in the industry at other companies or other marketers, they would hear what we did and they said, "How did you do that?" And I'd explain it to them and they'd be like, "Oh my gosh, that's amazing." But they couldn't actually take the lessons and implement them.
Right.
And it was so strange because it seemed so logical and so pragmatic in my head, uh, uh, that people would come to me and, call me up and say, "Derek, I'm looking for advice on how to do something." And I would always kind of come back to these common rules of marketing or things to keep in mind or how to balance product and brand and community together and get them to work together. And I would finish these conversations with, "Ha ha, someday I'm going to write a book on this." Uh, and it was more of a joke than anything else. And then a couple of years ago, as the economy turned down, the company that I was at said, we don't have space for everyone at this time, so we're going to let some people go." Uh, and I said, "I think I let's not jump into the next thing right away. Let's sit down and share this." Like, the thing that I knew that it would take to explain to people was more than sitting down and writing 3 blogs in a
Right.
series and saying, "This is how you do community marketing." There was a experience. What did we do to make it real? There were basic rules of the game that you had to follow, where we would see other people trying to replicate the thing that we were pulling off, And
Yeah.
in 2 seconds, I would be like, "That's why it's gonna fail. You're talking about yourself. You're charging. You're masquerading this as something else. You're gonna do this nice thing, and you're gonna follow up with spam." There was all the kind of basics that I could see right through. And so it was that point in time in my career where I just said, "There is a book in my head. I know it's a book's worth of information. Let me get that out there." And I have the time to do it. And I had some great advisors along the way that point. I literally had no idea how to write a book, although I just knew that there was all this knowledge. And in doing that, I was also able to reach out to other people that were leading communities, running communities, growing communities, doing that in a marketing context that I got to interview and research along the way. Um, and so that was the formation of the book. And a lot of it as well was, um, while community has been around for a long time, and a lot of people have tried it a lot of times, but I also saw that many CMOs did not, or marketing leaders didn't know how to embrace or fold community into what they were doing. And also many community leaders were off on some other planet or in some other orbit where they were like, "We're doing stuff for the community and we're really helpful." But I was like, "Aren't you employed by a company that's paying you to like help make more money than you're spending? Like, you've got to kind of connect to the bottom line of the business. Otherwise, people are like, I know we employ this person, but what do they actually do here? Because we're all trying to grow the business and they're like out at some conference or event talking to their friends, but I'm not really sure how that's connecting." So that was part of the what I needed to answer for people is how do you make that connection where community is actually part of the business
Mm.
and helpful to the business, and you could connect it to the revenue generating part of the business, which was key, which told you how to invest in it. But that was kind of really it. And so I kind of balanced writing the book and doing consulting for a while in between to keep the paycheck coming in.
Right.
But it was never a let's go and write the book and make a career out of going on stages and speaking about community and marketing. Like, I love being a CMO. I love being in the position, having the levers, having the budgets, having the people, having the challenge of how do you grow something out of nothing? And that's, the kind of basis of working at a startup,
Hmm.
right? And when people don't know about you and know who you are and know your brand and any of that, how do you create something out of nothing? And the unfair mind share was something that I incorporated early in my career of what are you doing as a startup marketer? And it was saying, I'm trying to get an undue amount of mind share in the market for this tiny little firm
Right.
that no one's heard of. How do you go about that?
Yeah.
And so the title, I had the title for 10 years. I was never planning on writing a book with it, but I would talk to people about this is what you do as a startup marketer. You're trying to get unfair mind share. Like,
Yeah.
how do I, as a, is a company in an industry where we have competitors that are 10x larger than us, get attention in that model where I hope the CMO at those companies are like,
Yeah.
darn it, how does this company Catalan keep showing up on the radar? And like, they're this thorn in our side, and aren't they like tiny? I'm like, yeah, like
Yeah.
we figured it out. You know why? Because we were human and we were empathetic and we were helpful and we were the architects of trust that you weren't, right? Like,
So,
that's
so I
that
saw a stat. Tell me if this stat's accurate. That recently it was reported that revenue growth at Catalan is up 329%.
uh yeah,
Come,
I think we're in the Deloitte Fast 500, we're in
come
the
on! Like,
8,000.
what's that even mean? Like, that's like that's an exponential factor that nobody even talk. People are looking at ROAS at 3.5%. Like, what? And obviously it's not a ROAS comparison, but
Yeah.
Like, how do you convert being good to being successful financially? Like, what's that bridge? Is it just being in the right place and earning that trust as and being, uh, earning the respect of folks to pursue the things you can do? Or how do you convert from we
The,
create this community that is really engaged to now they're buying stuff?
the, there's no magic to it. And I can tell you marketing is not the only answer
Yep.
to this. It's you get the right set of talented people together that all bring their strengths. The engineers bring the innovation, the financial team bring, the discipline and guidance, the legal team, protecting you and putting up the right guardrails, the sales team going out and being helpful yet being aggressive and meeting goals, the marketing team trying to amplify what we know works out in those markets. And I think it's really about, you know, the challenge for most teams is getting the right experience in the room that's knows what to say no to and understands what to say yes to.
Mm.
And it's, even if you have the right people in the room, there's always the constant reminder or discipline to say, just a couple of weeks ago, there was part of my team that was working on something that was less relevant to our business than another part. And I had to come in and remind the team. I said, here's the thing, like David Spinks wrote a book called The Community of Belonging, right?
Yeah.
And in that community of belonging book, there was a uh sorry.
All good.
So in the book that David Spinks wrote, The Community of Belonging, he wrote there's a golden rule of business. You have to understand that your business is in business to make more money than it spends, right? And that takes discipline. You can't just go out and do what's fun. You just can't do what feels good. You have to understand there's a core business here, and we have stakeholders, whether those are investors, our own employees, what have you, that rely on us. And so, part of it is, yeah, you can be in the right time at the right market, but understand what you're really good at, understand what you're not good at, uh, and exercise the things that you're really good at. Uh,
Yeah.
and that's part of it. We just got, the Magic Quadrants came out in our space, the first space, where our company, for those of you listening in Catalan, never heard of the company, what do they do? We're in the software testing market. And as all markets and all technology markets are facing, there's an AI side of it. So Gartner decides to come out with not a Magic Quadrant for software testing, which they didn't have. They came out with their first AI augmented software testing. And we end up in the visionary spot of that quadrant, or the Magic Quadrant. We're the only one in that, but we're probably among the small, if not the smallest, among the very smallest of the 10 vendors that are in this. And part of that is like just a real validation that we are, that little company that you haven't heard of that is doing something in software testing that is now on your radar, that people are going to check out because the larger legacy vendors aren't able to move as fast. They're not as nimble, and it's kind of like the real validation of, oh yeah, there are tons of companies in this market that we compete against, much more than the 10 in the Magic Quadrant.
Yeah.
There might be 100 companies plus in this space as software companies, but it was we were had the right innovation and the right reach and the kind of market engagement to get people behind, like, this is the leading edge of the leading edge is what it validated. We were higher on the visionary scale than, 8 of the other, vendors in this, um, which just says, like, we're in the right place at the right time. It's just scale this thing, baby.
That's fantastic. Congratulations. I've been a part of organizations where we were successfully added to a quadrant in a positive way, and it's such an accelerant to consideration. It's just fantastic. So congrats. You talked about how across the organization talent matters and alignment matters. How, as the CMO, do you catalyze that conversation? Like, how did you like what do you do to stay on top of like the insights that matter that you can help the team see when they are wandering off to an area that isn't uh, going to be as productive for the organization, and then how culturally do you help them see that without it feeling like, oh, dang it, there's Derek again, he's going to tell me not to play over here.
Yeah, so part of it is just it's being pragmatic and data driven, right?
Yep.
We look at data all the time, every single day in our business to identify where the patterns are. And I think it's very easy when you're in a growing business to look at the growing good patterns and say, everything's great, right? But you have to be disciplined enough to look at where the patterns are breaking. Like, oh, they're great in the US, but they're not as great in some other region, right?
Yep.
So instead of cheering on like, yeah, the US is great, go figure out what's broken in the other things. So you need to look at the data constantly to tell yourself what's working, what's not working, and how do you focus. And the other thing that I continuously remind my teams about is when you're making decisions about what we do, if we grow the business, as a marketer, you get more opportunity. There's more budget available to you. So those things that you're like, I wish we could do blah, 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 but it costs X amount of money. We don't have that money in our budget. Well, you know what? If we grow, we might have that money in our budget next year.
Hmm.
Or I can't do that thing because we don't have enough bandwidth. How do we get more people? Well, you don't get more people by shrinking the business. You get more people by growing the business. So I have really pragmatic conversations with my team to say, if we focus here, and if we're disciplined about focusing on the things that work, that drive the most revenue, that drive the best outcome for the business, you get opportunity.
Hmm.
But if you focus on something that like, here's a project that is a cool project, but generates no revenue and has no great impact for the business. Let's say you were not just 100% successful on that, you were 1,000% successful on that. What is the impact to the business? It's
Yeah.
nothing,
Yeah.
right? So you had fun, right? But it doesn't help the rest of the organization, not just like from a marketing perspective. We get more budget, we get more people, we can do more things in marketing, but the rest of the company is like, how do we get more engineers? How do we get more
Right.
salespeople? How do we get more finance people? How do we get more customer success people? You don't do that by shrinking the business.
That's right.
That
Yeah.
formula doesn't work. And when people understand, like, oh, if we do this thing and we do it 100% successful,
Yep.
we can have more opportunity. If we're 200% successful on that, it gets us even more. So the upside of doing that right thing right is, so important. It's so simple, right? But yet, it doesn't always come to those that aren't necessarily business minded or maybe don't
Right.
have the experience in running a business. But I think it's that importance of be practical and point out to the people like why we're doing the thing that we're doing. We're trying to make more money than we spend.
Yeah. Right.
Basic golden rule.
Yeah, it's amazing how often the simplest principles get lost in translation, or the chasing innovation in pursuit of accelerating the overall, but you lose the focus. The number of companies that do line extensions or new categories, new verticals, new markets, etc. when they're not ready or don't have a practical plan. It's a recipe for disaster for sure. As you think of the campaigns that you've worked on, the I'll call them marketing, but even could even be marketing adjacent, so things that might not be an ad or a event or something. Are there any examples of where the data was telling you one thing, but you found a insight or a strategic perspective or a customer, like insight that was actually more powerful that you then brought to life and used in the work that the marketing or marketing adjacent action that made a big difference in the business?
Um, the, it's it's hard so much because so much of marketing and what I see is data driven marketing. So
Yeah.
it's like rely on this data to tell you what to do. But I think that it's more on the intuition side of marketing that says, you know, hey, uh, this isn't going to be the best answer to the question, but something that intrigues me that I like uh, to instill in my current team and I've instilled in other teams is one of our big channels, as in most companies, is through LinkedIn, where you
Mm,
can connect with various people in various companies and form, a following, if you will, of people that are interested in the things that you're talking about. And the thing that bothers me about the LinkedIn's and the Facebook and whatever else is you just scroll through like countless effectively ads
right.
for people, and it's not that interesting. And what you're really scrolling through that you want to find is like, Chris Perkins said something amazing today that I found really helpful, and he just wrote it out, right?
Mm,
And so you're looking through and you're scrolling through trying to get past all the ads to find those things. And I think that the thing that the data wouldn't necessarily tell you because you're thinking, here's the platform, here's the reach, here's the audience. We can target that, like put something interesting in front of the audience, and that's an ad, right?
mhm,
Of some kind. What I have told my teams, and this is part of the community background, is let's put our humans in front of the humans that are interacting with this platform. And it's not 100% of what we do, but if anyone here goes on Catalan, on LinkedIn, Katalon, you look at our company and our feed, we have a lot of video. We invest in a lot of video. And there's a guy, Alex Martins, who I work with all the time, every day, day in, day out. And he's the kind of the star of a lot of our videos. But there are a whole lot of other people, Disha, Gokul, Daisy, Philippe, other people around our business that will show up. Even myself on occasion shows up in these videos. But part of it is, and they're not necessarily promoting our product, but they're talking about something that's of interest to the audience that we sell to.
mm,
And it's that human connection. Like, oh, what do you know about Catalan? Right? Or who do you know at Catalan? And the what do you know can end up being like, I think they're in the software quality space and software testing space, and they have a product. I think it's called Studio, but they might have other things. And I think I saw they were in the Magic Quadrant, right? But that's all like every company is going to do that. And you got to talk about your company and your product and your brand and what you do. But the helpful people, I see Alex all the time. And we told Alex, I don't want you to just show up once. I want you showing up a couple times a week talking about different stuff. And we
mm,
invest in that so that people feel like, well, I'm not just doing business with that company that I've heard of that has a brand and a product space. I know those people. Like, even though they've never personally met Alex face to face, you can find him on a sales call with us because he accompanies a lot of our sales calls. But you feel like I know the people, I
yeah,
trust the people. I feel like I've almost interacted with the people. I learned from these people. They were helpful to me. And that human to human connection, you're just not going to get out of data that tells you that,
Yeah.
but it's intuitive that is the ad on your magic quadrant going to be more impactful than Chris showing up every week on your LinkedIn feed of like, this is Chris. I know him. I know his business. I trust him. I hear what he says. I follow him. I actually want to hear what he's going to say next because the
Yeah.
last thing he said was pretty important. That, as much as I can say that and as logical as it is, look through your LinkedIn feed right now and tell me how many people are on video doing that and sharing that experience. And there are very few.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
at the same time, do you know what resonates with it that I know that is not a B2B thing necessarily?
Yeah.
What are you doing on TikTok? Right? You are scrolling through and you are finding people that are interesting with interesting stories that are telling you something that are helpful or entertaining or whatever, but it's resonating. And it's not they're on for a half an hour, they're on for like a couple of minutes being helpful or entertaining or something, right? And it resonates and you follow that person and you want to hear from that person next. Right, and marketers sometimes just lose sight of that. If you're
Yeah.
so data centric, then you're like, "Why is this not working out?" Like, did you ever try and actually connect with your audience? And they're like,
Yeah.
"Whoa, oh my gosh." Like, I could just imagine people listening to this that are like mind blown, like, "Oh my gosh." And like
Yeah.
all I said was, "Chris, you and I should have a conversation."
Right.
Right?
Right.
It's like,
Right.
"Whoa, oh my god,
Yeah.
people talk to each other?
Right.
Crazy." Right?
Yeah. Well, I commend you in, first of all, like keeping it human, because I mean, the number of brands that don't, particularly in tech, but also given that I mean, it's very few companies that can use data to inform how to stay human. I mean, that and I've got to have you back at another time as a guest to unpack that, because I think there's a whole richness in that space of how do you avoid, because the speeds and feeds people live in data and use data as they weaponize it, frankly, and against us consumers, and it's just a
And
shame. And what you've done is you've used data to free yourself of the burden of speeds and feeds,
And
and
someone yeah, so someone's gonna be like, "Okay, I heard Derek. I heard Derek and Chris talk." So we put a video up, and we have our own Alex, so we put a video up,
yep,
didn't do anything, right?
right, right,
And this is like the equivalent to like Chris showed up to one cocktail party once, right? And said hello and said something interesting, and we never saw Chris again,
right,
right? It's
right,
like, no, Alex shows up all the time, so we have this, and what like the thing that I can say when we started doing this, and not that it was the only thing that is responsible for it, but we grew from like 55,000 LinkedIn followers to 85,000 in about a year and a half.
yeah,
You just don't do that
yeah,
because like we're not paying for followers or something
right,
crazy like
right.
that. It's just this is organic. Like we're good at doing the thing that we're doing and we're helpful and it resonates. And then you see the data. Like when you do it enough, it's like, is this working? Yeah, Alex got like 200 likes on that video. Right?
Well, and the beauty is when you do that right and do that well, even the people that may not see it and or engage through LinkedIn as the channel of choice for them, their peer group is sharing it in other ways and spaces, so that that exponential outreach that occurs just naturally because there's value to be shared. And that's where a lot of organizations lose track on, they're so fixated on lower funnel, upper funnel, classic thinking, that they lose track of the fact that we're talking about humans that have analog senses, right? I mean, it's like, so we're all analog. AI doesn't, can't solve for that yet. And
Yeah.
data doesn't necessarily translate well in a lot of those ways, in the
Yeah.
way that people are tracking it.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we constantly, and again, this will be another tangent for another time, but we advise clients when they're saying, "How do I improve my commercial KPIs?" The number one way to improve your commercial KPIs is to improve your customer experience KPIs. What are you talking about? Well, there's the problem. Like there is lies the problem. The fact that you asked it that way, we got a lot of work to do. Um, but
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So Derek, we're running along here. Tell us, is there anything coming up for Catalan that you want to make sure the listeners hear?
We're just working hard trying to serve the market and
Yeah.
doing our goodness. Uh, we just got named as the leader in the AI augmented software testing quadrant. And for those of you that are out there kind of following it, I would just say follow us because we have so many AI based innovations coming out that are truly transformative and exciting and really pushing the needle forward on the innovation in this space. It is a super exciting place to be in the market to see. And like I get the pleasure of like we're gonna bring those out to market when they're coming out. Uh so that's something I would just say stay tuned. And if you're related to this market, like we have a community that's super helpful that you can join and learn from. And I would just tell people to get engaged that way. Um, Also, anyone that out there, whether you're in software testing or not, if you want to get a hold of me on LinkedIn, it's the easiest place to find me. I'm there pretty darn often, whether I'm posting or commenting or anything else. So I love interacting with people, being helpful, and helping us all out.
And definitely for the marketers out there, or frankly anybody, because the marketers are probably thinking this first, but business people writ large should read Unfair Mindshare. I mean, it's a great read and lots of practical tips and that you can actually apply. Like this, so many of these books out there are theoretical or practitioner specific, and I would argue there's a ton in there that is really applies really naturally. Um, so you've got your book, you've got your CMO role, you're building this company, you got great community, you're a famous dude, so much so that Hollywood's going to do a biopic on you. What's the name of the film, or who's going to play you, or what's the plot or theme?
The, we talked about this before. Like, who's directing this? Is this a horror flick or a love story? But
Right,
I'm gonna go. Some days as CMO, you have the horror flick that you're living through,
right,
and some
right.
days you have the love story. And hopefully, on balance, you have more love stories than horror stories, right? But I think it's the something like the path well trodden. Like, come along on this journey. There's a love story here somewhere. Maybe maybe that's a good title for the movie. There's a love story here somewhere.
Love
It's
it.
all about the people, the journey, the path.
That's fantastic. Well, Derek, I feel like there'll be probably a sequel to that movie, just as I hope there'll someday be a sequel to your book.
Yeah.
Um, well,
There's a thought about that someday.
all right. You heard it here first. Sign up now. Well, Derek, thank you so much for being here. And with that, we will conclude another episode of Beyond the Brief. And Derek, I hope you come back sometime because there's
Chris,
so
thank
much
you. It
we
was
could
a
talk
pleasure.
about. Awesome. Thank you.